I've been told we have to start, so we are going to start on time, especially to allow enough time for our Haitian participants to be able to give their full presentations. Yep. So I want to start by making sure everyone's in the right session, which is leveraging data to address Haiti's growing groundwater insecurity. I think we're all in the right place. And to introduce Marcia Glenn. So Marcia is the long-standing WASH advisor with USAID Haiti, and she'll be starting off by giving us a little bit of context about why this activity, why this session was important to USAID, and also to introduce our Haitian participants. So Marcia, let me turn it over to you.
So good morning, everyone. I don't think I need a mic. Can everyone hear me?
You do because you're online.
Okay. So thank you very much for the the introduction. I notice we have a small crew here, and I will be talking to the choir as it is said. Again, my name is Marcia Urquhart Glenn. I'm the Senior WASH Advisor at USAID Haiti. And just a brief overview of the U.S. Global Water Strategy. And prior to introducing our esteemed partners from Haiti, an overview of how the priorities in Haiti sync with those of the U.S. Global Water Strategy. I was at a conference last year, and something that really resonated with me and also with our strategy is the fact that by 2050 there will be, 12 billion people living on this planet. Water resources and global climate change are at odds with each other. There is a diminishing resource. And if we are to survive down the road, we need to manage it more carefully and with a lot more people involved from communities and institutions. Billions of people worldwide lack access to safe drinking water and water for productive purposes, or regularly face water scarcity. Inequities in both the rates of access to water services and in the availability and allocation of water resources continue to grow. These inequalities are evident, for example, between rural and urban areas, ethnic majorities, minorities, the wealthiest and the poorest, and those living in stable versus fragile contexts. Water insecurity endangers public health and food security and undermines economic growth. It also deepens inequities and increases the likelihood of conflict and state failure. Global shocks and stressors, such as the increasing severity of droughts and hurricanes, North Carolina is well acquainted with that, highlight the importance of strong water, sanitation, and hygiene services, finance, governance, and well-prepared institutions. In implementing the U.S. Global Water Strategy, USAID joins forces with at-risk communities and their national, regional, and local institutions through 4 interconnected and mutually reinforcing strategic objectives. Namely, to strengthen sector governance, financing, institutions, and markets, to increase equitable access to safe, sustainable, and climate-resilient water and sanitation services, to improve water conservation and management for climate-resilient freshwater resources and associated ecosystems, and to help anticipate and reduce conflict and fragility related to water. Haiti retains a high-priority country status for USAID's water security support, not only because it has low access rates and is impacted by recurrent water-related shocks and stressors, but because of the strong commitment shown by its water institutions to increase water access for all and to resolve to strengthen their domestic capability to better anticipate and mitigate conflict and fragility by having more people access more water for drinking, food production, and industrial purposes through improved water resource management. Since 2020, USAID has worked with water service providers under Haiti's National Drinking Water and Sanitation Directorate, otherwise known as DAI-implemented, to increase access to water for over 350,000 people in Haiti, supported community-driven initiatives in conjunction with smallholder farming communities and the Institute for Water Resources Management to enable over 49,000 people in Haiti, in Haiti's northeast, to become more climate resilient through risk-reducing actions guided by groundwater mapping and timely climate information, and helped establish the Center for Water Resilience at the State University of Haiti in the drought-prone northeast region that shares a border, an aquifer, and a major river with the Dominican Republic. The center offers an independent hub to convene technical and policy dialogue for informed decision-making regarding water security issues. During this new climate regime, Haiti, which has a groundwater economy, will need to adapt to address the main threats to this water source that communities and businesses heavily rely on. With that, it is great pleasure that I introduce some of the aforementioned stalwarts from the Haiti's water institutions, namely Monsieur Joseph Ronald Toussaint, Chief of Staff for the Ministry of Environment, representing the National Institute for Water Resources Management, Madame Dr. Ruth Angeville, Director for Water Services at the National Directorate for Drinking Water and Sanitation, otherwise known as DAI-implemented, Dr. Haïsse Guirand, President of Campus Henri Christophe at Limonade, State University of Haiti, and last but not least, Monsieur Honnête Jean, Manager of the Center for Water Resilience at the State University of Haiti, Limonade campus. I hope that this session will stimulate a healthy dialogue and mark the acceleration of systemic efforts informed by data to protect Haiti's water assets. Back over to you.
Thank you, Marcia. Welcome again, everyone, and thank you, Marcia, for those opening remarks. I want to add to what Marcia said with a little bit more context about this specific session and the story map that you'll be seeing. So it's understandable that a lot of attention in Haiti focuses on the immediate needs of Haitians. But at the same time, as Marcia referenced, there's been a lot of work to start collecting data and information related to water resource management, and particularly groundwater management. But as often happens, that data and information is somewhat fragmented, right? It's captured in a spreadsheet here, or a report here, an actor there. And in consultation with USAID Haiti, the USAID Fragile Waters Project, I'm the chief of party for that, we decided that it could be beneficial to pull some of this information together, to visualize it and create a story map. And this map, we hope, will start to trigger, as Marcia mentioned, some preemptive actions to try to get ahead of what could be another emergent crisis in Haiti, which would be the insecurity of the groundwater, particularly in this aquifer in the northeast. So the story map that we're going to share, typically when you see a story map, it's, you'll see the text just scrolling across it, but we're going to do it a little bit differently today. We've pulled out that text, and James Adamson of Northwater Consulting will be moderating. He'll be narrating the script as we run through it. He'll be able to tell you about some of the interactivity, the functionality of the story map, but we felt that was better than everyone spending 7 minutes collectively reading the screen together. So this allows a little bit more give and take as well. It is a work in progress. So we have been working on this for about the last 5 or 6 months even, drawing data from all these disparate sources and creating the visuals that you'll see today. We will go from this story map into a conversation with you, and after the UNC session, we'll be refining this map. We'll be developing versions with the narrative back in it in both French and English, and we hope that it will be a useful tool for CRE, for DNEPA, for the Ministry of Environment in thinking about their plan of action, their roadmap toward getting ahead of this groundwater management issue. Before we actually look at the map, I did want to recognize some of these sources of data, particularly the State University of Haiti, which has been doing fresh data development in support of fragile waters to feed into this map, and particularly to visit some of the communities in the Northeast that are reliant on the groundwater. So we'll hear a bit more during the panel about that exercise. In addition, USAID, I'm looking for Dan. There's Dan. So Dan is the chief of party and was chief of party for the predecessor project, Watson. I know there's an official title, Marcia.
USAID, Watson.
Thank you. And that was another source of data for us, primarily around the domestic drinking water and the work of the CTEs. And finally, the ESS Plus project and Northwater Consulting, who have really been spearheading a lot of the groundwater and aquifer mapping. So all of those have come together into what you'll see now. So just to recap the run of show, we'll present the story map. We'll have a brief pause after the story map for questions or clarifications specific to the map that hopefully James and Neil Patel from DAI was also supporting this activity. Then we will convene our panelists and we'll have a dialogue about what they've seen, what they understand, how useful this data can be, and then we'll go into an open conversation with you, the audience. James, can I ask you to walk us through the map?
Sure.
And fingers crossed, everyone, that this works. We haven't had a lot of time to test it in this live environment.
Thank you, Heather and Marcia, for that great introduction, and you provided a very good segue for what I'm going to be talking about today. And again, I am the guinea pig here, so see if I can.
Yeah, so we need to.
This thing's in the way. Easy stuff. All right, so I can't see this in front of me, I have to look at it up here, but this is the story map that was developed by Neil Patel and DAI as part of the Fragile Waters program. I'm James Adamson, I'm a hydrogeologist and one of the founders of a company called Northwater. Actually, we're based here in Chapel Hill and I live here. And I'm just basically a hydrogeologist that is in love with Haiti. And I've been working in Haiti for the last 15 years of my life, and I've spent a lot of time throughout the country, and I love the people in Haiti, I love the country of Haiti, and I've committed a big part of my life to Haiti. So I've contributed a little bit to this story map that I'm going to narrate you through, and I'll try to do it in a quick and concise manner, which can be a little bit difficult when I'm talking about Haiti, and especially groundwater, but we'll see what I can do. The story map, we're basically telling the story about the Plain du Nord aquifer, which is in the north part of the country. It's basically the lifeblood of the Northeast. It's a critical resource, and it has been, and there's tremendous potential and opportunity with it. I'm going to just show you where the aquifer is here in this map. So it's in the northwest part of the country. spans about 80 kilometers wide from Limbe and Cap Haitian all the way to the Dominican border. And on its east side, it's about 760 kilometers squared, which is about the size of Singapore. Also the size of Dominica, which is an island, another Caribbean island. The aquifer is really important because it's actually a sole source. There's not any other alternative water supplies really available for this region. It's an alluvial aquifer, so it's basically a basin of sediments from the mountains that have been deposited in the plain, so sands and gravels that store and yield water. It's generally pretty shallow, the aquifer, making it pretty available. It's continuous and it's available basically throughout the whole plain. So that's great, and it's encouraged and supported water supply access and agricultural development, but at the same time, being so shallow, it presents a lot of risk for contamination and overexploitation as well. The aquifer, it's a big aquifer. Generally speaking, it's pretty data scarce. There's not a lot of information about it. We don't have a lot of information about the aquifer dynamics or its usage. It's not monitored or tracked. There's pieces of information here and there and everywhere. And part of what we're doing here is trying to pull some of that together just so that people understand a little bit more about the aquifer as a whole and some of its threats and risk. And one of those efforts is the USAID ESS Plus program that I'm part of, and we understand some of the data gaps, and we're trying to fill some of those data gaps and do some mapping to better inform and guide the future management and sustainability of the aquifer system. And that's the map basically showing where some of the data that's been collected over the last couple of years as part of that program. And there's a photo of one of our staff measuring flow from a spring to support that program. I'm going to try to do this, but this is an example of some updates from historical maps to some of the new information and data that we have. And when this is online, you can kind of scroll to see how it's been updated. But you can kind of see how the old maps show the aquifer being quite a bit larger than it really is. That's just because there's more geological information, and the aquifer thickness, for example, isn't quite as thick in some areas as others. And in fact, some areas don't really have the aquifer that previously were thought to. Looking back at the aquifer here, I showed you the mapping updates that we talked about. And I just want to talk through a little bit about what we've learned through this process in the mapping update specifically. Oh, it didn't show up. Okay, so one big takeaway is that the aquifer is not this one continuous system. It's actually multiple basins, and we knew that beforehand, but the new data indicates that they're actually a lot more disconnected than previously thought. So that's important because they need to be managed individually. Each basin needs to be looked at individually more so and managed. They're very nuanced, and just approaching aquifer management for the whole aquifer as a whole isn't going to be a sound approach for mitigating impacts and sustaining the aquifer. The other thing is that productivity of the aquifer variable throughout the whole system. There's some areas that produce a lot of water. There's some areas that don't. There's multiple layers of aquifers. There's deep aquifers and shallower aquifers that we're just starting to learn about now. Nobody's ever really drilled deep in a lot of these areas because water's available shallow. The thickness of the aquifer, this is some data that's been pulled together. Better understand, where there is more storage and where it's thicker. You can see the blue is thicker, and the yellower is the thinner parts of the aquifer. And if you can kind of visualize, you can see how the rivers have kind of carved out each of those basins and provided sediment and alluvium for storage and yield. Another thing we looked at is recharge. We're having a much better understanding of recharge. Historical estimates have been overestimated. This shows the amount of recharge from precipitation. It's actually pretty low in the Plain du Nord, and that's for a few reasons. One being the evapotranspiration is very high, and the other, precipitation is actually quite low. A lot of the precipitation happens back in the mountains where the alluvium is not there. Also, you can see the red areas. That's where there's either rocks that don't infiltrate very much water, or they're urban areas that have a lot of impermeable pavement that doesn't allow aquifer recharge to occur. The other thing that's really important, actually, that we learned, especially in the eastern part, is that the rivers that flow through the aquifer are very, very important for the recharge. They're actually on the eastern part in the Massac, they're providing most of the recharge actually for the aquifer. So the rivers, and the big key point there is that the rivers are extremely important. And then this map shows the urban areas, and as I mentioned before, that reduces the amount of recharge, but it also, those urban areas provide a source of contamination as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about water use quickly here. You can see all the urban areas there. That's all the major areas that are using domestic water supply. They spread throughout the aquifer. Right now there's about 820,000 people estimated. So population is going to be growing to around 1.3 at least by 2050. And that equates to a current water demand of 12 million. That's going to jump up to 18 million. So there's a big shift occurring in terms of water demand moving forward. And currently that water demand that I talked about is being served mostly from dispersed systems. The municipal systems throughout the aquifer aren't actually pumping a lot of water due to management and infrastructure issues. Just to give you a quick number, right now the groundwater pumping from municipal systems only around 1 million cubic meters per year. Well, I just mentioned the demand is over 12 million, so the municipal systems are only covering a fraction, and the rest is being achieved from private wells, dispersed wells, unsafe sources, and trucked water. But as those systems are rehabilitated and grow and are managed better, there's going to be a lot more concentrated groundwater pumping and a lot more groundwater pumping from the aquifer as people are using more water with water at their house. This, I'm not going to click on this because it might throw a kink in my presentation, but in the interactive map you can click on these buttons and see what the population of the different communal sections are and what the water demands of those are now and moving into the future. And when you click on those, there's actually a graph that pops up that shows you how that changes over time. But as you can see, most of the population growth is going to occur where the current urban areas are. Urban areas are growing, but the rural areas are actually decreasing in size and stagnated. So most of the population growth is going to center around those red areas that you see. Going to jump into Cap Haitian real quick. Everybody is aware Cap Haitian is kind of the capital of the north. It's on the west side of the aquifer. They have a well field that's been there for a century almost, and it's in the suburbs. And that well field is in a shallow aquifer. The studies have suggested they can pump about 12,000 cubic meters per day without causing saltwater intrusion problems. The future water demand of Cap Haitian is 35,000. So it shows you the importance of understanding the aquifer and developing other areas of the aquifer, and also looking at that deep aquifer to meet that water demand. So there's quite a gap from the current source of water for Cap Haitian and the future demand for the city and the area. The agricultural importance is significant. This is a very important historical area of Haiti for agriculture. It's depressed right now due to economic reasons and other reasons. Currently, there's about 12,000 hectares under some kind of production throughout the North Plain aquifer. Historically, and currently, most of the irrigation and water supply come from surface water sources. They don't use a lot of groundwater for the agricultural sector now. There are some areas that do. There are a lot of wells that farmers use and have portable pumps and go and pump from them when they need it. But for the most part, surface water is the driver. There's a big network of canals and irrigation infrastructure throughout the plain, and that goes back centuries to colonial times when a lot of that was developed. But as we kind of switch, I mentioned some shifting changes. As we switch more so to groundwater, surface water is becoming less available. And there's other factors with agriculture that are leaning more towards using groundwater supply. So emerging threats, and I kind of talk a little bit, maybe phrase this as challenges, but the aquifer system is going under changes, dynamic, both in the way it's being used, but also the way it's being recharged and the way that the aquifer is functioning and behaving. Climate change being a big part of that. High emission scenarios, we're already seeing impacts. Currently, surface water supplies are becoming much less available in the north, and droughts are more prolonged, and affecting the agriculture, especially affecting the agricultural community. High emission scenarios are looking at 20% less reduction in precipitation, but then also increased temperature. So there's a significant decrease in soil moisture as a result, increase in evapotranspiration, a lot less recharge to the groundwater as a result of climate change. And it's kind of a double whammy because the rivers, as a result, are also flowing less. And as I mentioned before, those rivers are in the east side of the aquifer are extremely important for the recharge. So they're going to get less recharge from the rivers and from direct precipitation. And then I did talk, I talked into the surface water, groundwater interactions, the importance of those rivers to recharge the aquifer, especially in the east. This map just shows the Massac River, which is the border river between the Dominican and Haiti. That's the watershed, and that map shows the Dominican and Haiti side of the watershed. It's a shared resource. You may have heard some news about it. And as we know, there's another threat occurring, the use of that river. There's several canals on the Dominican side, and Haiti just completed the first diversion canal for this river both for agriculture. So those are pulling water from the river, and also you have the climate change, and the Dominican Republic is starting construction of a dam on the river as well. So you have all these things that are affecting the river, the flow in the river, and the surface water availability for irrigation and water supply. So with less water in the river, there's two things that are happening. Basically, you have the decrease in recharge to the aquifers, and then at the same time, you have less surface water available, so everybody's going to be switching to rely on the groundwater instead of the surface water. So you have less going into the groundwater aquifers and more being needed. Another impact or threat or challenge is deforestation. You've probably heard some news and stories about this, but forest cover has been changing and it's pretty dynamic on both sides of the border, and that affects the amount of water that can recharge the aquifers. Further urbanization I mentioned before as well. Those red areas, they're increasing, which decreases recharge to the aquifers, and it increases contamination risk. And then when this interact, I'm not going to click on it, but when you click on this, it kind of takes you through time with the Sentinel satellite imagery showing you the change in forest cover and then also urban areas over time. Another interesting thing is water quality. If this is the aquifer's water quality in terms of electrical conductivity, which is a proxy to salinity basically. And so you can see the red areas are already, it's water that's doesn't meet drinking water standards already. So around 20% of the aquifer already has water quality that's not suitable for drinking. That's mostly due to natural processes of the aquifer and some anthropogenic ones. And that's, where's the next one? Oh, there it is. So that just explains it a little bit, but there's a certain value, and so we mapped the entire aquifer with some data collection from the USAID program to develop this map and understand where the current issues are and where there could likely be exacerbated with additional pumping. And then, so I mentioned the salinity issue. The ocean's not the only source of the salinity. In Wanamith, for example, which is one of the larger cities in the aquifer, it's on the eastern part of the aquifer on the border with the Dominican. The salinity's been increasing in their production wells over the last 10 years, and that's because they're dewatering the fresher layers of the aquifer that are recharged by the river, and they're more relying on the older water that's naturally higher in salinity because it's been in the ground longer and absorbed a lot more ions. We don't think there's really a threat of that water increasing above drinking water standards, but it's important to note that there's signs of the dewatering of the fresher layers of the aquifer, and this is pretty far inland actually. Sanitation and waste management, there's not really sanitation and waste management infrastructure in the country. For example, in Cap Haitian, there's it's a city of almost 1 million, and there's no wastewater collection, treatment, disposal. Population's growing, things are developing. That needs to be a high priority to protect the aquifer from contamination. Waste management as well, disposal of trash and hazardous waste is a major aquifer risk that can permanently damage some areas of the aquifer. The path forward, I know I'm over my time here, but the path forward, a big thing is there's still data, despite what we just showed you, there's still data scarcity. There is no monitoring programs currently. There's very limited monitoring programs relative to the aquifer right now. A lot of the data is just a snapshot or a point in time. So without having more data collection and monitoring, it's hard to guide management in decision making and planning. Another thing that's going to be important as agriculture further develops, I neglected to mention that we're expecting agricultural pumping to increase significantly because there's going to be less surface water availability from the climate change impacts, and so it's going to be less reliable. So groundwater is going to become more and more important for the ag sector. The other thing there is that solar pumping is becoming a lot more cost efficient and accessible, and technologies have improved significantly. And there's aquifers we're seeing in other regions of the world and developing nations where the ag sector's exploded from solar pumping, but the aquifers are declining at alarming rates. And this doesn't happen in Haiti, but it's certainly a risk. And it's also an opportunity too, because the aquifer is underutilized. There's tremendous potential. And we want to see the agricultural sector develop. We just want it to be done, it needs to be done sustainably and consider all the data and the knowledge that we have about the aquifer. I mentioned before that this is a sole source aquifer, so there's no other sources of water. If these water resources are compromised, the ag sector and the domestic supplies don't have alternatives to meet the demands without major investments. And so that's something to be considered. In the U.S., for example, there's a sole source aquifer designation. that identifies that importance of the aquifer and provides safeguards and funding and regulatory measures to protect it and allow those communities that are situated on the aquifer to regulate and enforce and protect their aquifer system. So maybe there's something like that in the future for Haiti for this aquifer. And then we mentioned before that the importance of waste infrastructure. We're looking at a lot of growth here, especially those growth projections we talked about don't consider really the migration from Port-au-Prince and the decentralization of Port-au-Prince, and Cap Haitian is kind of the default place besides Lacaille for decentralizing the country. So that growth could be even more significant. And then, it sounds gloomy and everything, but Haiti has this tremendous aquifer. It's actually, the Pointe du Nord aquifer is one of the biggest aquifers in the Caribbean. It's underutilized because it is bordering the ocean. It's a little bit more vulnerable than a lot of alluvial aquifers from that matter. But it's underutilized, as I mentioned. There's more than plenty of water, renewable recharge occurring, even with climate change, to support the economic development of the North, meet water demands of the growing population and industry, and agricultural needs as agriculture migrates to more so to groundwater economy. It just needs to be done in an informed manner and use data and have access to more regular monitoring data and information for that management and planning. If that's not done, there are a lot of risks and threats, for local areas, and some of the impacts could be permanent to the aquifer. That's all I have for the moment.
I'd like to invite our panelists to come up to the front, but also to open and see if there are any questions specifically about the map. I'd also say that we'll all be here all week. If anyone would like a demo, of the map, we'd be happy to sit down with you and show it as it exists sort of on the web and be able to demonstrate more of the functionality. So I'm going to add, sorry, Jeff.
Are you inviting questions now, or shall we wait?
Is it specific to the map? Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, because I'm guessing the discussion will become policy level, planning level questions. So I just have one technical question regarding the map. So you had shown a distribution of salinity. I guess you used EC as your proxy. And I'm guessing you've interpolated that from individual observations. The question I have is, you'd also pointed out earlier discontinuities. I think you described the aquifer as having sort of subsections, discontinuities. So I guess how are you reconciling your sort of continuous field for the interpolation with the discontinuities that you identified?
That's a good question. The discontinuities, more so, we use that EC data partially to identify that discontinuity, and also some drilling records and information like that. So they kind of go hand in hand. In areas that were data gaps and there's bedrock outcrops, we kind of made some interpretations between those areas for the EC.
Got it. But you're confident that the medium is uniform enough that those interpolations are
yeah, and some of those EC areas are actually like in probably more likely to be in some weathered bedrock than they are in alluvium.
So to kick off our questions, I wanted to start with Onis. Onis is with the Center for Water Resilience at the State University of Haiti and has been working closely with USAID Fragile Waters. They recently went out to some of the communities and farms that are situated in the Northeast. And Onis, I wanted you to just give us a little bit of feedback about what you found in discussing the aquifer situation with these communities, how aware they were of some of these emergent challenges.
Thank you, Linda, for this question.
You have a,
Doing our recent assessment of water security in the Plains du Nord from July to September, conducted by the Water Resilience Center as part of Fragile Water Project. We focus on understanding how major water users, such as farmers and kiosks, large water vendors, perceive water management and condition of the aquifer. So we find the most of those users don't know much about the local aquifer or the potential threat to it. Many, including farmers and water vendors, don't have the key information they need about water resources, especially about change in the water level. This is a concern because many think the aquifer is unlimited, which is true. They don't realize how important it is to manage the water properly, like drilling well deep enough to still work during dry season. There is also a lack of understanding about risk to water security, including urbanization, deforestation, pollution, and climate change. Those factors lead to increased demand for water, reduce natural water recharge, and contamination of water source, putting even more pressure on the aquifer. It is clear that we need to educate and raise awareness among these communities and large water users about how to protect and manage this water better.
Erise, I wonder if you might add on to what Onis was talking about. As the president of the campus at Henri Christophe, where the CRE is located, what role do you think CRE can play in helping to fill those knowledge gaps?
Yeah, okay, thank you. I would like to start by, I would like to start by talking 1 minute about our institution for you to understand what we are doing. We are from the State University of Haiti, the campus located in the north in Limonade. And we're just 12 years old institution. We create an institute for sustainable development. And CRE, which is Center for Water Resiliency, is part of that institute. And the role of that institute is to carry the action, the research, and the service to the community of the campus of the State University. And the mission is to work, research, action, and support policymakers and all the stakeholders in terms of water resiliency. Look, we do events, we train, we participate in studies like this one. And our aims is to putting the science and technology to help develop the country. It's our objective. The center do research. We can do participate with other university, other institutions like the NEPA, like all the stakeholders to do what we are supposed to do, academic research, action, training, vulgarization, I don't know if it's an English word. Outreach. Outreach. That's what we can do. And we organize ourselves to be able to do that through the Institute. The Institute has many thematics. We have gender equity. We have agricultural resiliency, water resiliency, education. We have thematics. And the Center for Water Resiliency was the first center created with the help of USAID, and it is the most active parts of our institute. But we can contribute to, let's see what we were doing, empowering the communities, promoting sustainability, building resiliency, and driving positive change. That because, as I said, people don't ignore some very basic notion that he said the aquifer is unlimited. A little action against the system for some people doesn't add to a big impact. My action is little, but they didn't think that adding every negative action that's going to have a big impact. That's what I can say. And we are really ready and willing to participate. As president of the campus, I can assure you, we are willing and we are ready, and we didn't have the resources before at the beginning. Now we are building capacity. We have projects helping us. We have other institutions like INARHY, like some farmers, but we are building capacity. We have a laboratory. We have a farm, demonstration farm. We have a lot of things, but we can participate.
Thank you. Ruth, I wonder if you might give your perspective from DNEPA. So I'm curious to understand the information that was presented in the story map. How well do you think that is appreciated within DNEPA and among the water service providers, the CTEs? And maybe you could also talk about what more within your legal mandate DNEPA might do to help protect the aquifer.
Good morning, everyone. You hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Heather, for the question. And I'm going to start to talk just a little bit about DNEPA. DNEPA is a national institution responsible for water, to provide potable water and sanitation services to the Haitian population. We've been created in 2009 as a national institution. Before, there were different structures, managers providing waters, but now we have a mandate to regulate, develop, and coordinate actions at the national level. So we've been created since 2009 to do those kind of to assume those kind of responsibilities, and we have a direction working on potable water, that I represent, and we also have a direction working on sanitation. So we have four. The country is divided in 4 regions, and each region has number of municipalities forming them, and we have a number of managers, water structure delivering water created. Depends on the scale of the population. We can have one fitted for urban areas and one kind fitted for rural areas. So that's how we dealing to manage and provide services to the population. And as for your question, Heather, I can say on our side that it's 50-50. I can say it like that. The way that we are aware about some information. We have many projects, many activities with building data, and it's very important for her to have accurate data to provide the services, since the water sector rely a lot on groundwater to provide potable water to the population. Most of our services are are using groundwater or spring water. We don't really have experiences with surface water. We mostly go using groundwater and spring to deliver the service. So it is very important for us to have data and accurate data about groundwater to know how to use them, and what is the availability, since we are not the only institution either using groundwater. We have agriculture and so on. So it's important to have a good relation between all of us regarding what we are taking from the ground and how we are using it. And the Ministry of Environment have a really huge huge responsibility and role in this harmonization, and also we can meet our services level and protecting as well the water, the ground, the resources, let's say. So as I said, we have many projects coming from different funds who help us building those data, and on our side also we have an observatory for the water sector named ONEPA, and who's dealing with data regarding the water sector. But we are not working alone. We are in interaction with other structure, other institution, the same research, or who's dealing with the same kind of data, so we don't overlap each other. So and as well, I can say we have a lag, because we have sometimes we have human resources that leave the sector and who live with the information and everything. So we have in a how can I say, we are in a process of capacity building that we must fulfill every time, so we can be ahead of the challenges. I'm not going to repeat them. They were well presented in the one-off show. And so regarding our mandate, what I can say we are doing to help improve protection of the water resources, we are working very close with the Ministry of Environment. We have INARHY and Mr. Toussaint is gonna talk about it, and we reinforce the advocacy with the other institution of the other national institution working on territorial development and everything to protect the recharge zones and to have suitable development as much as is possible so the water sector can meet his mandate to deliver potable water to the population. And as well, we are working on controlling the non-revenue water that help manage correctly the water. We are promoting the use of a water meter, so to control the utilization. And on our side, we are also working on capacity building, as I said it before, so our managers will be aware of how to manage correctly the infrastructures and answer quickly to some issues that may arise. And as well, we are, as I said before, working very close with the other institutions who have an impact on that subject. We are not the only one. We are users of the water. But we have in our mandate responsibility to work, to advocate, and to help put in place frameworks and everything that can help protect and manage correctly the water in the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ruth, for highlighting the connectivity that we have to look at, and I think that echoes what Marcia was saying earlier, the willingness of the many institutions in Haiti to forge those kinds of alliances and think more holistically about the challenges. Which does bring us to Ronald, who is speaking on behalf of INARHY. I see that he has many pages of notes, so he's clearly very passionate about this topic. Ronald, let me ask you, in a fragile context like Haiti, where there are so many pressures, so many things that require attention, what's the thinking of INARHY in terms of how to accelerate and amplify attention to groundwater? And does the story map help in that? Does having this repository, it's obviously a point in time, it's not a management tool per se, but it does capture a lot of information in one place right now. So I'm interested in your thoughts on this, but you have to leave a little bit of time at the end for questions.
Yeah. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Heather. Heather said I won't have time to say thank you, but as a professional bias, I have to say thanks to DAI, to the USAID water-funded project to have invited me at this important dialogue interaction, and that has to deal with a vital aspect of water governance. I imagine that I'm sorry for my French and English. I hope that I won't say the book, okay? But okay, I imagine everybody in the room is aware that Haiti is in the midst of deep security, political, economic, and humanitarian crisis. Okay, you have food insecurity, which is a high record. Almost half of the population, let's say, more or less 5 millions. We are 12 millions, but more or less, 5 millions is facing acute hunger. You have also the armed gangs. Armed gangs control most of Haiti's capital and some important strategic roads. You have also internal displacement of the population. Internal displacement of the population Among them, you count for 500,000 children. And in addition, the Dominican Republic is expulsing 10,000 Haitians per week. So you can imagine that the kind of pressure that could impose locally on water, which is the topic that we are dealing with this morning. And also, we cannot forget the cholera is still in full swing. The country is also experiencing significant climate change risks. I don't want to go to a lot of details, but you have rising temperature, the declining rainfalls, and that create shift of the seasons. The farmers are unable to know the period where they have to grow the crops. The season becomes less predictable, and you have also hurricanes and tropical storms regularly wreaking havoc across the country. You have marine heat waves. So, and marine heat waves and intrusion that leads to coastal erosion, and loss of some economic infrastructure. So, coming to groundwater. Groundwater is an important stock of water for the Haitian population. Rural and urban communities are completely dependent for domestic and industrial supply, dealing with groundwater. Okay, and you have the explosion of water kiosks, people selling water in commercial purpose, and DINEPA would just tell you that most of the time they go on the aquifer to supply the population the potable water they need. But the problem, the recognition of the importance and problems and threats faced by groundwater doesn't receive the attention required. We have to be honest among ourselves. It's because the common paradigm, water is abundant in Haiti, doesn't facilitate the situation. When I heard Jameson a few minutes ago, I noticed he said, oh, Haiti has a tremendous aquifer, bigger in the Caribbean. That doesn't help, to take into consideration, the delicate situation of groundwater threats. I said, oh, again, they start again. You see, this is the last policy document the Haitian government has prepared. The National Hydrological and Sanitation Plan. I was doing an exercise since last night to see if I can find a single reference. Perhaps you can help me after this presentation. To find a single reference in terms of problematic and options dealing with groundwater. Nothing. No reference. Okay. So, INARHY has been created 3 years ago. Okay. I would like to draw to your attention two important articles of this presidential decree creating INARHY. INARHY, that's the national, how do you translate it into English?
Institute for Water Resource
For water
Management.
resource management, okay? So you have I know even if there is an ongoing debate among academics what means water security, you have Article 5. When you try to go to the legal jargon, judicial jargon of lawyers who prepare that, you have the Article 5. Article 5 set the stage for the concept of water security as the capacity of the population for sustainable access to adequate quantity. When you find all these alineas, you can find a definition of water security, okay? In terms of acceptable quality water in support of sustaining livelihoods, in terms of protection of the population against waterborne pollution and water-related diseases, in terms of preserving ecosystems upon which clean water availability and ecosystem services depend. And finally, the Article 5 made an advocacy for good governance. The exact wording, they said adequate institutional framework that has to deal, okay, with water security issues. And an important article in the presidential decree creating the INARHY is the Article 60. Article 68 is dealing specifically with groundwater. Even if we recognize that there are some conflictual, that there are some articles that could potentially put INARHY in conflict with other institutions dealing with the water sector, but Article 68, okay, I think that's the specificity of INARHY. And let me try to go very fast. In terms of threats, you said that, but I would say, Heather asked me to answer the question in terms of emergent threats. I think there is a combination of emergent and legacy threats. The menace ancienne, not only emergent, okay? And naturally, you have loss of natural capital of Haiti, and well, I will spare you data about deforestation, deforestation of Haiti, and you have landscape degradation because of the loss of natural capital of Haiti, and you have also, as a consequence, river alteration. And as threat, demographic and urbanization. We have the same size of the population with Cuba and Dominican Republic with less land. Okay, so excessive pumping of aquifers. I think Jameson would also talk about that. Water contaminations as a threat, because there's open defecation. Okay, people doesn't have sanitation facilities. I know that's a big problem for Ruth, and she works hard with DAI to try to bring some solution. Okay, but all land-based pollution dealing with open defecation. I remember that I read it's about 30 or 40% of population in terms of percentage, okay, that practices open defecation. We take also another threat, that the potential groundwater transboundary conflict. Jameson talk about Massacre River, okay? And we have these transboundary aquifer shared with Dominican Republic. We're also in the region of lake, in the lake region. Enriquillo from the Dominican side and Azuay from the Haitian side. This is an important groundwater aquifer. So what INARHY can do to increase water security? I prefer this formulation in terms of combat water insecurity, to increase water security. I will say there is no single option. There is no single option. That means a multi, I don't say the English, pronged approach. Pronged? Pronged. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Yeah. And first of all, we need to really and officially set up the institution by appointing through a presidential, or let's say, an official ordinance, the general director of the INARHY. I know that INARHY is a kind of delicate dance vis-a-vis of other institutions dealing with water when you look at the institutional landscape of water sector in Haiti. But we need to officially set up, appoint a general director. I was it was not a joke. I was very serious before coming here. I said, well, Ruth, we have you in our radar, because I just have a breakfast with the minister. We have you in our radar, Ruth, because we know her very well. She has been very active. She's very skilled and strong woman with leadership. We think that we need someone to promote a kind of institutional buying of INARHY, institutional buying. And as part of good governance, INARHY needs to understand how come we pretend to manage resources, vital resources, without knowing what is the availability, where we can find this important. INARHY needs to understand that the research part of the question raised by Ed, you understand through some global early warning system for related to water related threats, and rapid assessment to verify threats, and bring appropriate solutions, good indicators, some modeling tools. I don't know, this time, I thought it was a tool, but I saw the story map as a visualization. We take that visualization is very important. Okay, that's why what you do with the story map is very important. Because the first time I have been exposed to go to the story map, that gives me a very clear and holistic idea of what is the situation of groundwater in the Northeast. Okay, so I learned a lot. We think that INARHY, we need to have, Haiti is the only country that doesn't have an integrated water research management. I'm sorry to say, this is not an integrated Okay, this is not an integrated, because I'm a kind of I like to think outside of the box, and I wish to say in French, I'm the guy who likes to donner un coup de pied dans la fourmilière. When you have a lot of ants, gathering, I like to boom, and try to rebuild, but this is not an integrated policy. I think INARHY has to work with other important stakeholder actors, to move forward and integrate water resource management, where groundwater can have the place it deserves. So, it needs to mobilize, not only finance, but also expert people that could assist INARHY. INARHY needs to avoid the gigantisms. I don't know how to say that in English. Gigantisms. Not to try to replicate the structure of the Ministry of Environment, having a big thing unmanageable. So we need to avoid that. And we also take multi-stakeholders dialogue to use water as an entry point is also important. We need to work to decompartmentalize the management of the sector, to go to decentralization. So, what I should say as a conclusion, we are thinking in terms of the nexus of water insecurity, climate insecurity, and security linked to biodiversity loss, and also health issues. INARHY should have this in its radar, to try to move forward. You invite us, I see the title of this side event, Iter and Neil and Dan wrote, leveraging the data to cope with insecurity. I would say, leveraging the water as a whole, either surface water and groundwater. Leveraging the water for peace, for stability, to improve the people livelihoods. So data is an important aspect, but I was tempted, to reformulate. I'm sorry. Where you in the event you invite us, leveraging data, of course, but leveraging water to combat insecurity in that field is also important. Thank you.
Thanks to all our panelists, and I would like to open up for questions, but I just want to flag a few things. One is, I appreciate that you brought us back to the importance of governance in this. Yes, it was a session about data, but data means nothing without the governance structure to actually make use of that data. So I do appreciate that. And I think what we've heard from all the panelists is that need for integration, the nexus approaches. We all know that water resource management is not the responsibility of one component of an economy, but it takes that integrated approach. I also appreciated that positive framing, that it's not about countering threats, it's about that positive vision of water security. So I thought that was also useful. Can I ask if there are any questions from the audience? Anything you want to explore, either from the map, from the panelists, to understand more about institutional roles? Thank you for bringing the documents with you. That was a bit of an education for me. Or anything that our panelists didn't have a chance to say that you'd like to add? Okay. Madam?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this presentation. I'm USAID with Marsha as well, but I have a question for Wood Underfield. My question was about the groundwater usage in Haiti. In your intervention, you said that we are not experienced for surface water. We don't have the experience for the usage of surface water in Haiti. But I think that maybe I'm wrong, but in the plan, the Plan National DAI-implemented, was there an attention given to a shift from groundwater to surface water, or was it there and it's forsaken and maybe it's gonna be taken? Because I remember also Madame Pritzi talk about that 2 years ago, that there's a thought about exploiting less groundwater and starting the shift to surface water. That's my question.
Thank you for the question. And I'm taking a few seconds to thank Mr. to highlight to highlight all those aspects regarding me. But fortunately, I can say that I'm not the only one in Haiti with those backgrounds who can help dealing with water. I'm part of it, and I'm glad to be part of it, and I will, as much as possible, still will be part of it. And anyone can count on me. So to go back to your question, I said that, sorry if you misunderstand, if there was any misunderstanding. I've said that for now, we don't have infrastructures where we are using surface water. We have few experiments, I can say, but we don't have infrastructures relying on surface water to provide potable water to a huge or a large area. We have experiments in the southeast region near the Dominican Republican boundaries, and we also have some little experiment in the Artibonite department, as well as small treatment plant was taking water and going very light in treatment to provide water for many little neighborhoods. Okay, so as a huge plant, like we have infrastructures in other cities in the country, we mostly use spring water and groundwater to provide potable water. Yes, we do want to diversify, not to switch completely, but diversify the water, what we use as water resources to provide water, because groundwater, whenever there is debate on proficiency or not of enough groundwater to supply, but we do as well facing issues regarding the facility to get access to this water in some areas, as it was shown for the Plaine du Nord. But we still have, whenever it's been shown that it's not fully used, but we still have issues in some areas like near Cap Haitien, where it's very difficult. We have bowels, but it's not that easy to get enough water to provide to the needs of the population in those areas. So we have as well, whenever we can have enough quantity, or we might have slight issues with quality, water quality for this groundwater, but sometimes we have issues to get in the good area to pump out the water we need. So we are intending to go to surface water to provide water for many many areas. We have to deepen this kind of project because it will involve different communities. We have to see the interrelation between the communities. We have to see the management process of this kind of system, and as well, we have also to take into account the environmental issues in the country because our rivers also suffer about environmental issues in the country. But as we said, it's as well an option in order for us to provide water because there are some areas where water is not that close. We have to bring it. It's still a city. There is still people living there, and we have to meet their needs in terms of potable water to survive. Thank you.
I think we had two questions in the back. Yeah. Dan, all the way in the back.
Hi, good morning. This is Praveen, and so I'll ask my question in English, if that's okay. Yeah. So I come from India, and I'm sorry I walked in a little late, but what I understand is data is useful for policy making, and I really appreciate the way Mr. Joseph Renaud kind of criticized and also appreciated what is there. My question is more towards, so data, there's a lot of data that's collected from governments, either by governments or through partners. Even in India, we collect a lot of data, but some of this data are probably scary because, especially when you talk of groundwater, either the data says that the groundwater is very, it's not there, or it's polluted. So there's a lot of such data that comes out. Sometimes governments are not willing to put this data out on public.
Yeah.
Right? But what I've seen is in cases where such data has been put out on public, a lot of innovative solutions have come forward. Citizens have stepped forward and said, we can solve this problem. We understand the issue and we can help you solve this problem. But governments feel that probably there might be a political twist to it, so they don't want to put data. So my question to specifically Joseph Renaud and maybe even others, if you can pitch in, is how did you convince your political bosses? What is the message probably I should take home, and what should I tell my politicians that it is important to put data out on public?
Okay.
Wait.
Okay, his question remind me an anecdotal things that happened within the Ministry of Environment at the end of 90s. The Ministry of Environment ordered a study on the Port-au-Prince Bay. We found in the Port-au-Prince Bay, you have, let's say, 30 kilometers to the northern part, a touristic zone named Arcadine Bay. And the quantity of coliforms that we found in the Port-au-Prince Bay, when we consult the norms, the US norms, and the European norms, we decide to not publish this data because the touristic activities could be jeopardized. You imagine when you go to take a bath in the sea and you imagine the quantity of coliforms you can swallow, so we decide to not publish it. That's why I was smiling when you said the government sometimes is afraid to make publicity about some data. Data can scare government. You said, what is the option?
We just have a few minutes.
Wait, what is the option? The question it was, what the government can do or what?
How do you
How
convince
do you
us?
convince your government?
Okay. I think we need to put the things in terms of mitigation measures. Mitigation measures to avoid a big danger. You know, that's the way we can rephrase, put that in the perspective. That would be my advice. Put that in the perspective. When you say, because I used to make the interface between technical person and politicians. I was a former politician. I was a former minister of environment, okay? But I tried many times to make the interface between technician people. When they came to me with the jargon, I don't know, they said, what do you mean by that? And I forced them, I pushed them to explain, and we said, okay, this is how we can present that. I think my recommendation would be to put that in a perspective, but in a positive way, okay, in terms of policy actions, you know, to mitigate or to overcome the problem identified by the data.
Can I add something?
We are actually running out of time,
Okay,
but we're going to
just 1 minute.
answer this question, and I'm going to thank you in advance. I know people will have to start
In
leaving.
that subject matter, we just found in a study that all the schools in the north, the water supply are not, they are not potable. They are contaminated by E. coli. But we found out, we keep the information for ourselves because we don't know what to do with those data for political issue. That sometimes the university we face that and we don't know at that time what to do with those data showing that all the school supply, they have coliform.
Okay. Regarding DINEPA, since we have both sides, we have the potable water and the sanitation mandate. On our side, fortunately, when we have those kind of the data, we are working very hard to seek answers, to help bringing solution and go over the origin of this kind of issues, and as well to improve the quality of water used by the population. So it's not that easy. It's not that easy when you are facing those kind of data, but it is important to take good actions and on time. So we are willing to reverse the situation. We have the mandate to, and we are keep working hard on it to find a solution. And I want to thank everyone, and especially USAID and DAI, who brings us here today. It was a very great session. And thank you also for all the other donors who keep working with Haiti, because most of our funds are international funds who help us develop the water sector. And so I take this few seconds to thank every one of them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to encourage folks to seek out our panelists during the week, ask them any questions. We've run out of time, but USAID, DAI colleagues working in Haiti, we're available during the week to answer any questions that you did not have a chance to ask today. So thank you again for coming.
And I want to echo Ruth's thanks to USAID for orchestrating many different mechanisms to bring us here today. Thank you.
Good job.
Okay.
Bien fait. Very, very good. I work for
You should be schmoozing all week.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Really good.
We wanted to deal with
Picture of the delegation.
Yeah, okay, appreciate it. Okay.
She's already watching my tape.
Yeah, we talked many years ago, but that was before that. I know, he's always talking about.
Okay.
That would be great.
Maybe that's in the background?
But then it's like all in their face.
Oh,
You know, when there's the
okay.
lights in there.
Yeah, we're not in it.
I'm gonna lose them.
You should get in the picture too.
Okay, let's go. Start it off.
Set up.
Setting it up.
Liz.
Hey, Dan. How are you?
How you doing?
Monsieur le directeur,
Yeah, what will
une
So the
photo de
picture.
la délégation. Donnez.
Cynthia.
Yeah, turn this off.
How do you change that?
How do we turn off the projector?
It's okay, the logo is back there too, it should be okay.
For those who got it.
Donnez-moi les personnes jolies dans la photo. Pas moi.
1, 2, 3.
I don't know, somebody